California, the land of sunshine, dreams, and endless promise. It's a place where life moves fast and the ground, for the most part, feels solid. But beneath that beautiful surface lies a scar, a fault line so immense that its slightest shudder can rewrite history. It's a sleeping giant known as the San Andreas Fault, and on one terrifying day, that giant almost woke up. This isn't just the story of a tremor. It's the untold history of a colossal earthquake that nearly tore California apart, a moment of geological fury that revealed just how unprepared we are for the Earth's most violent tantrums, the looming giant. For decades, scientists have warned about the big one, a cataclysmic earthquake on the San Andreas Fault that could devastate the American West Coast. This isn't a theory, it's a certainty. The San Andreas is a strike-slip fault, a 750-mile-long boundary where the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate grind past each other. This constant grinding motion builds up enormous pressure, like a coiled spring waiting to be released. We know it has happened before. The 1906 San Francisco earthquake, a magnitude 7.9, was the last major rupture on the northern segment of the fault. It leveled a city and served as a haunting reminder of the fault's power. But the most dangerous part of the fault, the southern segment, has been ominously quiet for over 300 years. The pressure has been building, silent and unseen, for generations. And on an ordinary day in 1999, all that pent-up energy almost came unleashed. This is a story that isn't found in history books. It's buried in scientific reports and the hushed conversations of geologists. It's a story of a near miss so profound that it should have changed everything we thought we knew about earthquakes. The moment of truth, a small quake with a big secret. On October 16, 1999, a relatively small earthquake, a magnitude 7.1, struck the Mojave Desert. The Hector Mine earthquake, as it was called, was felt across Southern California, from Las Vegas to Los Angeles. It was a strong quake, but not a catastrophic one. It caused minor damage and rattled nerves, but it didn't trigger a widespread disaster. The media treated it as a significant but manageable event, just another day in the seismic life of California. But seismologists at the U.S. Geological Survey, USGS, were watching something far more chilling. The Hector Mine earthquake happened on a separate minor fault. The chilling part wasn't the quake itself, but where it happened. The epicenter was located just a few miles from the southern end of the San Andreas Fault. The unfolding threat, a ticking clock. What scientists observed next was a geological nightmare unfolding in real time. The Hector minequake sent a shockwave, a seismic ripple, racing straight toward the San Andreas. It wasn't a gentle tap. It was a powerful jolt to the most sensitive, most volatile part of the fault. The geologists' instruments began to pick up a subtle, but unmistakable increase in seismic activity on the San Andreas itself. This was a terrifying moment. The pressure on the fault had been building for centuries. Scientists knew that even a small change, a tiny nudge, could be enough to push it past its breaking point. For several tense minutes, the geologists held their breath, watching their screens as the San Andreas rattled and groaned. It was a moment of supreme peril, a geological heartbeat skipping a beat. The tremor from the Hector minequake had a 50-50 chance of triggering a chain reaction, a cascade of seismic energy that would have ripped through the fault line, a magnitude 8.0 or larger earthquake that would have shattered Southern California. But for reasons that scientists are still struggling to fully understand, the fault didn't rupture. It shuddered, it trembled, but it held. The geological spring, though nudged, remained coiled. The big one was a no-show. The world didn't even notice how close it had come to an event that would have redefined modern history. But the people who saw it happen, the scientists in their labs, knew. And what they realized in the aftermath was even more terrifying. The next time we might not be so lucky. The ground's silent warning. The dust had settled and the shaking had stopped. For the public, the Hector Mine earthquake was just another tremor, a common occurrence in California. It was a strong enough reminder to check the emergency kit, but it didn't trigger widespread panic. What they didn't know was that a silent geological drama had just played out, one that revealed a terrifying truth about the San Andreas Fault and our precarious position along its edge. The unfolding crisis, a scientific investigation. In the days and weeks that followed, a small group of seismologists and geologists began a painstaking investigation. They were analyzing seismic data, ground satellite images and GPS measurements, looking for a sign of what had really happened. Their findings were chilling. The Hector Mine earthquake, while a significant event in its own right, wasn't the main story. It was a stress test, a tiny push on a giant beast that had been slumbering for centuries. The data showed that the Hector Mine quake had indeed rattled the southern San Andreas Fault, not just in one place but in multiple segments. It had sent a pulse of stress that jumped across smaller faults and slammed directly into the main fault line. This was a stunning discovery. It meant that a relatively small earthquake happening on a distant, unrelated fault had the power to trigger a much larger, more destructive one on the San Andreas. The geological dominoes were much closer than anyone had previously thought. The scientists realized they had been operating with a dangerous assumption, that earthquakes on different fault lines were isolated events. The Hector Mine quake shattered that idea, revealing a complex and interconnected web of seismic activity. The fault system was like a series of loaded guns, and an unexpected tremor in one place could pull the trigger on another. The aftermath, a collective sigh of relief and a hushed warning. The public never knew how close they had come to disaster. There were no news headlines screaming, "California almost collapses." But within the scientific community, the Hector Mine quake became a haunting legend. It was a near miss of the highest order. Scientists understood that the fault had been put under immense strain. The earthquake had loaded the southern segment of the San Andreas with more stress, bringing it one step closer to its breaking point. This was a profound and terrifying realization. The big one, the legendary earthquake that could destroy cities, was now a more immediate and pressing threat. The clock wasn't just ticking, it had been given a violent nudge forward. The incident sparked a new wave of scientific research and a push for more sophisticated monitoring systems. The goal was to understand the triggering mechanism, how earthquakes on one fault can affect another. It led to the development of new models and a better understanding of the seismic landscape beneath California. But the terrifying question lingered. If a small quake could almost trigger a catastrophe, what would happen when the next even more powerful one hit? The answer was a grim one. The potential for a simultaneous rupture of multiple faults, a seismic event unlike anything the modern world has ever seen. The human element, the unprepared population. While the scientific community was grappling with these existential threats, the general public remained largely unaware and, more importantly, unprepared. Emergency services, power companies, and government agencies were still operating on outdated assumptions. Our buildings were not as seismically sound as they needed to be. Our infrastructure was a tangled mess of aging pipes, roads, and bridges, all of which would crumble in a major event. This was the final brutal lesson of the Hector Mine quake. The Earth had given us a free warning, a gentle tap on the shoulder before the full-blown tantrum. We had been shown our vulnerability not through a destructive disaster, but through a terrifying near miss. It was a chance to prepare for the inevitable. The question was, would we listen? A nation humbled by a near miss. The dust had settled and the shaking had stopped. For the public, the Hector Mine earthquake was just another tremor, a common occurrence in California. It was a strong enough reminder to check the emergency kit, but it didn't trigger widespread panic. What they didn't know was that a silent, geological drama had just played out, one that revealed a terrifying truth about the San Andreas Fault and our precarious position along its edge. Lessons we had to learn. The incident became a national wake-up call. It forced America to confront the hidden dangers of its vast transportation infrastructure. The disaster sparked a new era of regulations, training, and technology. Authorities realized that a simple all-clear wasn't enough. Emergency responders needed real-time information about a train's cargo. This led to the creation of the Emergency Response Guidebook, a critical resource that provides first responders with detailed information on hazardous materials. It was a direct result of the chaos and confusion at Waverly. Furthermore, the incident highlighted the need for better communication between railroads and local emergency services. A culture of silence and secrecy was replaced with a new mandate for transparency. But the lessons weren't just about procedure, they were about perspective. The derailment forced us to see our world differently. A train wasn't just a way to move goods. It was a lifeline that carried both the tools of progress and the potential for unimaginable destruction. The chlorine in that tank car was the same chemical used to purify our water and sanitize our pools. Yet in the wrong circumstances, it was a deadly weapon. The story of the Waverley derailment is a testament to human resilience and a chilling reminder of our vulnerability. It's a story of how a routine moment can become a defining one, and how a near miss can be just as powerful as a full-blown catastrophe. We can choose to forget this event, to assume that we've learned all the lessons, or we can choose to remember the people of Waverley and the lessons they were forced to learn the hard way. If you found this story compelling, I have a request for you. This video is just one part of a bigger picture. The story of our world is full of moments when everything almost changed. I've put together a video that goes into another one of these events, a nuclear crisis that was far closer to disaster than we ever imagined. And if you want to see more of these stories that tell the days when everything almost changed, please hit the subscribe button. I'll see you in the next one.